So again, just quick posture check. Let's just try and bring those shoulders maybe back a little bit. Hopefully that helped a bit what we did yesterday. So we're going to just focus much more on kind of waist down today. So what we're going to actually start with, we will just do a little walk through the feet, getting the toes and the heels lifting, the ankles moving, the knees and the hips. And of course, when we're looking at the body, I know we're separating out certain areas and we'll be putting it all together obviously tomorrow. But you know, our body is one big so huge fascial system. Now, as you bend your right knee, we're going to take the right arm up, left arm back. So we're now splitting the arm. So we just get everything moving just to warm us up. And then start to circle the right arm round. This is just a nice little quick kind of warm up for everything. It kind of involves all of our tissues, all of our movements. And then start to look behind you. So we rotate round. 4 more. 3, 2, last one. Good. So we won't be focusing so much on feet, but obviously that is also kind of part of it when we come to lower body. Now, I want you to just come into just a small squat position and place your hands on your thighs. We're going to do a standing cat. But first of all, I just want you to think of lumbar spine, tucking under. So think of your tailbone drawing towards your breastbone. And then take those sit bones up to the ceiling. So it's just basically a tuck and a tilt of the pelvis. But you can feel here, I think this is a nice one to do standing. So you can feel, as soon as you take that tailbone under, you can feel your whole spine starting to C-curve around. So let's keep it sequential now. Pelvis first. Feel it come up to the small of the back, up to the upper spine, our thoracic spine. Then let the head look down towards your legs. Then take the tailbone up and we start to articulate, uplifting the head. So we're articulating through the spine with sequential movement. Good. So it's like the Mexican wave of the spine. 1 more. So just feeling again that connection of when the hip starts with that kinetic chain of movement that I was talking about earlier in the week. We have these natural movements, don't we? So you can feel as soon as you tuck the tailbone under, last one, that everything else starts to move into flexion with it. And as we take the tailbone up, you can feel like your whole spine wants to extend. Let's come back up to stand now. Now we're going to do some leg warming up. Best way to warm the legs up is squats and lunges. Now, I know we don't like them. If you've got bad knees, maybe pop your heels on your mat or roll your mat up a little bit, or a cushion or a block underneath your heels. But we're just going to do, just let's call it a knee bend. Let's not call it a squat because it sounds so much worse. Just a little knee bend. So we're getting, obviously, again, ankles are moving. So can you feel as you go down? And in fact, if we stay very upright and bend your knees, try not to lean forward. Can you feel that restriction in your ankles? Because we have it, we can let that go a little bit, can't we? When we sit back, we can go lower with the hips. But if we stayed upright, if we did this against a wall, there's no way we'd ever get our hips down to the floor, would we? But when we bend at the hips, now we can allow, because we're releasing this movement in the ankles. So, and we've been talking lots about this in sort of over the entire year, actually this year, about how important it is to get good dorsiflexion. Good, just make this your last one, going a little bit deeper. So of course, as soon as we're loaded on top of the legs, I like to do standing work when we're looking at legs because of when we're standing on them, we're using them. So you're burning more energy from just standing, obviously, than sitting because of the amount of muscle extra we're working. Now we're going to go into a wider squat. So toes turned out. So now we've got lateral rotation at the hip. Now, can you feel as soon as you rotate out, actually glutes start to kick in a little bit more, because glutes are part of your hip rotators. And we're going to do a deeper bend and push it up. So the other thing you'll feel here is that the inner thighs start to stretch, because obviously we're going wider with the legs. So this can be quite a nice stretch for inner thighs, but we've also got to use inner thighs, our adductors, a little bit more to straighten. Good, down. Now this time as you bend, I want you to lift your right heel, keeping the ankle nicely aligned with the leg. So no sickling out into that little toe. Keep the weight equal through the big toe and the little toe. Left heel then lifts. So we're doing an alternate heel lift with each bend, but keeping our body weight dead in the center. Really stretching spine. So we're still thinking spine and relaxed shoulders. Good. And bend. 1 more on each side. Bend and straighten. Excellent, good. Then just walk the legs back in. So we've involved a few different muscles by changing the position of the legs. Now I want you to take your right foot off the floor now. So we're balancing on our left leg. So we did some balance earlier in the week when we did the back to basics, and we know we got to lift up out of that hip socket. And we're using glutes as soon. We're loading the leg, and even more now because we're on one leg. So more weight and glute work. And then we're going to drop this right hip. So now we're all out of sync, aren't we? We're slightly side flexed, our pelvis isn't level, and then we're going to lift that hip back up. So you can really feel the work in this hip. Now there's several areas, often we do this standing on a block, don't we? There's several areas working here. So of course we can feel it in that hip joint because we've got to abduct this leg in order to get the pelvis up. So also of course, we're working into side flexion, so that means our obliques, our waist muscles are working as well, which will work more on obliques tomorrow with our power Pilates, 2 more. But this is also a really great loosener for lower back. If you get lower back issues, because the pelvis is moving, we're working muscles around our lower back as well. On the right leg now, but what I want you to look at is different movements of the hip joint, where the legs join at the hip. So we're going to drop this hip now, the left hip, and lift it up. So I quite like, I do this sometimes just standing on the bottom stair at home. So you're standing, so imagine I'm standing on the bottom stair and the floor is here. And then you can let your leg hang then and let your leg go down to the floor. But obviously if we're doing it freestanding, we're going to have to lift that leg off and just getting that lovely hip movement. So this is great if you do suffer with hip and lower back. Just do a few of these standing on the bottom stair, just dropping the leg down and up. Do a few of those every morning. It will be a game changer for your hips. Good. And I think also it's really good, we've all talked about this QL muscle as well, how tight that can get. So that's a hitch hip. So of course we can move forward and back. So now let's do some more movements of the hip joint. So we're going to take, again, our right leg off the floor. So we're standing on the left leg. And we're simply going to bring that knee up to the chest. So this is flexion of our hip. Then straighten out the leg, but squeeze the bottom to take the leg behind you. So we're going up and we're going back. So we've got flexion and extension. Good. Now we've done a little bit of abduction already, but let's now take it out to the side and then take it across the center line. So now we've got our abduction and adduction. So again, just different movements. So we were talking about the shoulder being a ball and socket joint yesterday. So is the hip. Good. Now we're going to lift it up a little bit in front of you and we're going to pull the foot to the center line and then the foot out. So we are externally rotating, internally rotating. So it does exactly the same as the shoulder. So now let's take it across, so we're externally rotating. Lift the knee a little bit higher and see if you can take it abducting to the side. Then we're going to rotate the foot up and the knee down and take your foot behind you as if you're trying to touch the wall behind you with your foot. Then we bring the knee up and we let the heel drop and we bring it round in front of us, taking that foot across the center line and up. So we're now going into our cars of our hips. So we did those controlled articulated rotations of the shoulder yesterday. Because it's the same type of joint, we can do exactly the same thing here. Last one, up and round. Squeeze it back, bring it back round. And of course, bonus balance work. Let's take the weight off the left leg, give it a little shake out now. So we're now on the right leg. Let's take the knee up to the chest and then squeeze the leg behind you, straightening it. So it's going to be a bit easier to move it. When we bend, can you feel, if we tried to straighten the leg now, there'd be too much stretch here, wouldn't there, through the back of the thigh? We'd never get the leg that high. But the same thing, as we go back, we need to straighten it to get it back, otherwise we've got the pull here. So we also always got that kind of push and pull, that lever pulling, and it's kind of a bit, again, a bit like a digger, pulling like levers and pulleys. Now hold it up, and we're going to go out to the left side now and abduct it across. So adduct it across. So it's abduction, taking it away, adduction, adding it to. So away from the body, adding it into the body. So that's how we can remember abduction and adduction. Good. Now keep the leg there and rotate it out and in. So this is external rotation, so bring the foot in, internal rotation out. So again, just really good movement. So if a joint has a particular range of movement, we want to work it, don't we, as much as we can within all those ranges. Now keep the foot in. We're now going to articulate it out to the side. This is a lot of work. If you need to stop and have a little break at any point, absolutely do that. Foot to the wall behind you, bring it up and round and in. So hopefully we're getting our full range, really start to push it. Remember back to basics when I said just take yourself a little bit out of that comfort zone, just take it a little bit further than you think you can, and we'll get more movement. And if we continue to do that all the time, we're never going to lose that range, are we? Of course, our bodies change as we get older. Well done. Bring that leg down. A lot of work in this leg as well, isn't there? So we're actually working the supporting leg while we're moving the other one. So, nothing works in isolation, does it? Whenever we're working something else is working as well. Good. Now we're going to go into a lunge now. But actually, I want you to grab your band if you've got one. Again, this isn't essential, but if you've got a band, grab this. I've just thought of something else would be useful to work with here. What I want you to do is place it behind, keep it nice and flat if you can, and place it behind your right thigh. So it's as wide and as flat across the back of your hamstrings, the back of your thigh, as possible. Then we're going to hold it, I would hold it in both hands. You can hold it single, one in each arm, or hold them together with both arms. Now we're going to lunge back on our left leg. So just taking a small lunge back, it doesn't need to be too big to start with. And of course we've got a nice stretch going on here. You can hinge actually if you want to. More glute work actually if you hinge. For the purpose of this exercise at the moment, we'll stay upright. Now what I want you to feel you're doing is try and keep the arms pushing forward. I want you to push your right thigh bone into the band as you step back in. So think of squeezing that right bottom cheek and pressing back. So keep this leg fairly light. And again, so we're going to go back. So what I want you to feel is the work of the supporting hip, which is going to be our right hip. So push your thigh bone back into the band. So try and keep the arms pressing forward so you're getting that bit of resistance. So we're going to feel the glute working a bit more. And you're going to feel how much work, because we're bending at this hip. So this is the muscle that has to work to bring us back up. Last time. Down. And then feel that press back. Just so you can feel where the muscles are working a bit more. You've got a bit of resistance to work into. But you don't have to do that with a band, obviously. It's just so that we can really feel where we're moving from. Obviously, the other hip is moving as well, but the one that's loaded is that front leg. So now keep this right leg quite light now. Hold the band out. So get a little bit of stretch on it. Try and keep the arms pulling forward as we bend back. Now, obviously, we're going to be kind of bicep curling a little bit here. But hold that band forward with the arm so you can feel your left thigh bone pushing back into the band. So we can feel remember to extend the hip is the job of the glutes. So we're focusing a lot on glutes today. Take it back. So squeeze the bottom to send that thigh bone back into the band. So we know we're driving that thigh bone behind us. So all the weight's on that left leg as we step up because we've taken this leg off the floor, haven't we, to bring it forward. Down. Good. And squeeze it back. Excellent. Well done. Now we're going to go into try and go into a deeper, fuller squat. So again, if your knees are not great or your ankles are quite restricted, I'm going to grab a cushion here just to show you and to place your heels on. Now we're going to go, remember, when it comes to squats, your squat position is your squat position. Don't ever let social media or anything tell you that you've got your squat position wrong, because who are they to tell you that your squat position is wrong? So I hate it when you see those social media posts with a big red cross and a tick. This is how you squat. So play with it. I always like a slight turn out for me and just a little bit wider than that hip distance apart. So we're going to do as deep a squat as we can. Some of you might be able to go all the way down. If you can, go all the way down. Don't worry if you can't, and then push back up. So the deeper we go, the more stretch and contraction we're getting through the muscles. So can you see, if you can go all the way down, your glutes are on maximum stretch now. So that means they've been stretched. Their fibers are longer. They've got to work harder to contract. Down. Good. Now, at the top, I want you to add a heel raise. Lower the heels, squat, and lift. So if we're going to be talking legs, so when we're focusing on legs, if you really want to keep good strength in the legs, the two best things you can possibly do, and if you can do these every day, you'll always keep good leg strength, is squats and lunges. So we've done both of those. Up and down. Good. Well done. Pop your cushion to one side for a moment. Now we're going to come to 4-point kneeling now. So let's just do a little roll down to take us there. So we're going to just let the chin drop to the chest, feel a rounding of our spine as we roll down. Now here, we've warmed up the legs quite nicely today, so hopefully this isn't too much of a shock into the hamstrings. Let the knees soften a little bit if you need to, but try and keep the legs relatively straight. And let's just take a couple of deep breaths there, just feeling that gentle stretch into the hamstrings, allowing your head to fully relax and release. Give it a little nod or shake if you like. Then take a deep breath in. As you exhale, we're going to bend the knees, bring the hands to the floor, and we're going to come into just 4-point kneeling position. Wrists under shoulders, knees under hips, or a little quadruped. Checking that we've got just a little bit of kind of lift of those lower ribs so we maintain our little natural curve. So imagine you've got a puddle of water in the small of your back. Now we're going to, because we're focusing on legs and hips today, we're going to do some work from the glutes, and it's a really good position to do it in 4-point kneeling. Now the first thing I want you to do is just draw your knee towards your chest, but we're going to keep a natural curve in our spine. So we're getting as much flexion as we can. Again, we're getting stretch on the glutes, and squeeze the bottom to push that leg back behind you, keeping the pelvis nice and level. So simple as that. Bring the knee in, squeeze it back and lift it. So again, really focus on squeezing the bottom to get your thigh bone. Imagine you've got your band still behind that thigh bone. Good. So the best thing we can do is get a little bit of flexion as well as so we could just do a lower and lift, but it wouldn't be much work, would it? Now bend the knee back in, and we're going to go laterally into abduction to the side. So we're now going to look at the different angles that we can work at to get the glutes working. So that was getting a good range and working the hip much better, obviously. But now we're doing abduction, so you can feel it much more side of the leg. Now let's go behind us, like you're trying to put your footprint on the ceiling. So again, imagine you're pushing against the band, squeezing the bottom. So a shorter lever now can help you get that thigh bone a bit higher. And up. Good. Now we're going to go in the middle. So we've just gone to the side, we've gone back behind us. We're now going to 45 degrees. So between those two angles, so more to the corner, the back corner of the room now. Squeeze it. Now, can you feel that's a little bit different? We're working slightly different muscles. So just like we've got different sort of sections in the abs, we've got different sections in the glutes. This is glute medius, kind of side bottom. Now let's just circle it all the way around. Bring the knee to the chest, take it to the side, squeeze the foot up and circle it around. 2 big circles. Then we're going to go in the other direction and round. I've learnt my lesson from the last couple of days that I can't pack as much into half an hour as I thought I could. And have a sit back and stretch. So I kind of want to go through different angles and different movements because I think if to keep it simple for good health, for good body function, just keep moving as much as you can. So it doesn't always have to be all the really grueling stuff. Obviously, I'm a massive advocate of strength. Let's go on to the left leg now. I think, for me now, I can't go through a day without doing a little bit of strength work because I think, now that I'm in my 50s, I know it's so important. Let's bring the knee towards the chest as far as you can and then squeeze the bottom, stretch that leg behind you like you're trying to touch the wall behind you, bending. So first of all, we're looking at flexion and extension and getting as much range as we can by taking that knee to the chest. So yeah, as I say, you could just lift up and down. It's still going to get glutes working, but not as functional really. Then bend the knee and we're going to the side and down. So now this is abduction again. We're working the side of it. We do work a bit of glutes here as well and abductors, which is obviously the side of our hip. Good. Now let's take it behind us. Imagine that band behind your thigh bone again, as if you're trying to put the footprint on the ceiling, always maintaining that lovely length of the neck and that push of the floor away from you. Squeeze. Good. Now we're going to the diagonal, so to the back corner now, in between the two areas we've just been, so 45 degrees now. You're going to feel more glute medius, so the side bottom muscle. And take it back. Good. Now take it out to the side and we're going to do 2 big circles, big as we can go. Pull it into the chest, round. Pull it in, then go back the other way, round. So even though we've done a few, we can feel the work, can't we, of the glutes? And because we've worked in different angles, we've targeted. So again, if you really want to strengthen glutes and hip area, then it's important that we work all these different muscles, all these different angles, keeping that movement as big as we can all the time, keeping it pretty functional. Excellent, good. Now, we're going to come down onto our back now. So come and have a lie down on your back. And just lie in your normal, what we call our relaxation position, finding your natural curve. So again, we went through this on Monday, just allowing our spine to relax into our natural curves. Now, keeping your left leg bent, you're going to slide your right leg away from you. So straightening out your right leg. Good. Now we're going to go into the Batmont exercise. What we're actually going to do though, to get a little bit of stretch, a bit more stretch and a bit more kind of a rounding of the lumbar spine, I want you to hug your left knee. Now this is completely optional. You can keep your foot down if you don't like this one, but just for something a little bit extra. So can you feel it stretches out that right hip a bit more? So you can hold onto the shin or the back of the thigh. So it's like a hip flexor stretch basically. We're going to keep the natural curve of your spine, point your right foot. The right leg is now going to lift as high as you can. Now don't worry if the knee bends a little bit, it might do. Flex the foot, reach through the heel and lower it down with control. So we're going to point to lift, flex, reach through that heel and lower with control. Try and get the back of your calf to just very gently tap the floor. Lift it up, lower it down. We've got 4 more and lift. So all the time maintaining your natural curve in your spine, lift and lower. So this is massively hip flex, isn't it? We've got a long lever. So we have got some quads working, but this is mostly, we did more of the quad work was when we were standing, our squats and lunges. Good. Now we're going to hug that right leg in and stretch the left leg out. So again, you can just keep the foot to the floor if you like. Make sure we've got our natural curve and we've got a really nice open left hip. We point that left foot, point to lift, high as you can without losing that connection of the tailbone, flex and lower with control. Not allowing the leg to weight to the floor, just slightly hovered or just very lightly touching the back of the leg on the floor. Point and lift. Good. So can you feel how much the hip flexors have to work? Not just because we've got a long lever here, so we've added extra weight just by lengthening the lever, but also as soon as you lift that leg up, the hamstrings are stretching, aren't they? So we're kind of fighting against our own hamstrings. Good. Last 2. And then we're going to do some lateral work. Good. 1 more. So now I want you to just take a hug of both knees if you like for a moment. Then when you're ready, roll over onto your side and come into torpedo position. So we're now going to work on a little bit more on the adductors and abductors. So again, trying to work on all these areas. And like I say, the more strength and movement we can get through the hips, the better, the more healthy they're going to stay. Waist is lifted, so we've got everything stacked. Shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. So as you look down, those legs should be right back in line with the spine. So we're going to start with the top leg only. Keep the knees facing forward. If you can, balancing, hand on the hip. We're going to stretch that leg away and lift it as high as you can. Now you're going to feel a block of movement at some point around about sort of 45 to 50 degrees. And we don't want to let the waist drop. So keep that little bit of daylight underneath your waist. So if we keep the pelvis still, we're going to really feel where that full range of movement is. 4 more, up. So again, we're working with a long lever. If it's too much, bend the knees and work with a shorter lever. So that's an easy way to remember. To build strength, we go longer with the lever, shorter for less work. Good. Well done. Now, I want you to completely relax that top leg. This is the hardest bit actually, is relaxing now, because that leg's just been working. So let the knees soften and just let that leg go heavy and relax. I don't want you to work your top leg at all. Stretch your bottom leg out and we're going to lift the top leg up with the bottom leg. So your top leg is now your weight. So it's kind of torpedo, but with a really relaxed top leg. We're usually kind of stretching both legs. Again, making sure that waist stays lifted, up and down. It's really difficult, isn't it, to relax that top leg? I find it really hard. Who'd have thought that would be the hardest bit, actually relaxing? So feeling your adductors now underway. And obviously if it's too much, then you keep the top leg active, so it's not so much of a dead weight. It's a dead weight now, isn't it? And lift and lower. Good, well done. Let's go straight over onto the other side. Again, trying to pack in as much as we can into half an hour. So everything nice and long, balancing if we can, hand on hip. Now, of course, if you get wobbly, just take the fingertips in front of the belly button, but keep this shoulder relaxed. So waist lifted, stretching that top leg, make it feel about 3 inches longer than the bottom leg, and we're lifting and lowering. Stretch it away and lift, lower. So again, can you feel that block of movement? It gets to a certain point where to get any higher, we're going to have to let the waist drop. 4 more. So stretch it away. Feel length as well. Good. No rotating. Keep the knee forward because this is a lateral movement. Good. Last one. Then relax your leg nice and heavy. Let the knees soften and just switch all the muscle. This top leg's just going to enjoy the ride a bit now. So underneath leg stretching, so straighten out that leg. Make sure we're lifting the thigh bone off the floor and lower. So let that top leg relax and add just as a weight to the bottom leg. So this obviously is going to be harder. It's just a little bit more advanced because we're adding weight. So again, that weight may not be suitable for your hip at the moment. So in which case, just let the top leg be a bit more active. So it's kind of not that dead weight anymore, if that makes sense. It's just lifting slightly. Good. 2 more. Inner thighs working. Good. All the time maintaining. It's just like our normal core work we do, maintaining a nice natural curve of our spine and using the core muscles to stabilize the spine as we lift and use the legs. Well done. Good. Now roll over onto your front. And we're actually just going to do a little quad stretch here. So let's grab hold of one foot, bring the heel into the bottom. If you prefer, stay on your side. For some people, front lying, it's just a too much stretch. So you can do it lying on your side and just grab foot, trouser leg, maybe use the band to hook around the leg if you like. So of course, stretching quads is really important as well, and hip flexors. Usually they kind of go in hand to hand, but to stretch the hip flexors more, we want a straighter leg. So like we did when we were lying down, actually. But to stretch the quads, we need a bent leg. So that's going to give us much more stretch through the front of the thigh, those 4 long muscles that we're stretching there. Good. Let's let go and stretch out the other leg. So you could just move over onto the other side or just grab the other leg. Can you feel a difference? I'm a bit tighter on my right side, but it's my dominant leg. You're probably going to feel tighter on your dominant side. Remember, you can just relax the leg a little bit more. If it's too much at the knee joint, hold trouser leg or back a sock or use a band. 1 more deep breath in there. Excellent, good. And relax. Well done. Now come over onto your back again and grab your band because we're now going to do hamstring stretch. Now there is so much more we could do with legs. In half an hour it's difficult, but I'll keep posting stuff. So I know a lot of you follow me on social media, so I'm always kind of alternating around, what we're doing to just give you little tips of what you can do to keep these areas flexible, to try and avoid kind of discomfort and pain. And let's take that leg up. But the most, and I'm going to be talking about this at some point in the group about consistency. So just keeping, I think it's so simple to just think, I just got to keep myself moving. Try not to sit for too long a time. If you've got smartwatches, set them to 20 minutes to remind you to get up. So we're using the band to support the leg, getting that nice hamstring stretch, no forcing, no pulling. So when it comes to legs, it's very broad, isn't it? And glutes, we've targeted both. Like I say, the best one for glutes is anything standing, squats, lunges. Just try and do, I often say, and I think I did, this might have been last summer, or it might have been over lockdown actually, when I said just try and do 10 press-ups. Oh, it's when we did the strength training sort of bit, didn't we? 10 press-ups, 10 squats every day. Let's switch to the other leg now. Of course, you can get a little calf stretch just by flexing the foot. We've done a lot of sciatic nerve mobility as well with this one, but we'll just really concentrate on the hamstrings today. So it's a bit difficult actually to stretch out the abductors that are on the outer thigh. It's a tricky one to do. The best one I found really is that one where we take the leg behind, which we will do after this at the end. So we've pretty much worked all the muscles, the abductors, the adductors, the flexors, the extensors. We've even done some rotational work, which is really important for the hip. Good. Bend the knee, take the band away. Now, you can either stay where you are for your glute stretch here, rest right ankle, left knee, grab the left leg and draw in there to stretch out glutes, because we have worked glutes a fair bit, not against any resistance, so it's all just body weight. If you prefer the sitting version of this stretch, we take the right leg over the left, use your left arm to pull that knee in, sit tall, and then gently, you can add that gentle rotation as well, so you get that bonus of a spinal stretch with this one. But I know not all of you find as good a stretch in this position in the glutes as you do lying down. Then let's change sides. So left ankle, right knee if you're lying down, or left leg over right. Use the right arm to pull it in and gently rotate. If you're lying down, you may not have to pull the legs in closer. You might already feel quite a good stretch there. Often just turning it out if you're lying down, so pushing the knee slightly away from you might help as well. Good. Well done. Now, if you're lying down, just gently bring yourself up into a sitting position now. And we're going to stretch the inner thighs. So again, if we're going to strengthen all these muscles around the hip, we're going to think of flexibility as well, because we don't want to keep strengthening and then end up so strong that we can't actually move anymore. Now, so this is one position, feet together, what I call the butterfly position, knees pressing gently down, or go into straddle. So you're wide. Now, the problem with this one is if you tighten hamstrings, it may not suit you. You might want your hands behind you maybe. Just prop yourself up nice and tall. Good. So it's keeping that balance, isn't it? We need to keep good strength. But if you look at some of these, I think they do a lot more flexibility training now. But back in the day when I first started teaching, I used to teach it more in sort of like leisure centres and gyms. Let's give the legs a little shake out and bring yourself up to stand. And I used to find that they used to really struggle with tightness, or the bodybuilder people that built muscle, the really bulky, the ones that used to do proper bodybuilding, had no flexibility whatsoever. But I think they're learning now that flexibility training and mobility is a massive part of it. Now let's take the right leg behind the left leg, so kind of almost squeeze the inner thighs together. Bring the right arm up, stretching to the ceiling, and kind of banana shape the body. Push that right hip out. Now, this is really good to do. You can hold on to the bottom of your stair rail or something, your banister, or a door frame. So you would be pulling away. I'd be pulling with my right arm against a door frame and pulling the hip out. But it's nicer here, freestanding with the arm up. Take the left leg behind now, squeeze the legs together, left arm up, push the hip out, and stretch. Good. So if you find this one helps, you don't feel much of a stretch here, do you? It's kind of more in the waist really, but it's kind of the best. It's just a very difficult muscle to stretch. Good, well done. Now take the feet a little bit wide and take a nice deep breath in. Big stretch round and back. Give your legs a little shake out, and good work, well done. How does that feel?